Hi guys, thank you all for joining. I'm super excited to be hosting a panel today with the Social Impact Center, talking about the experience of LGBTQ plus workers in the cannabis industry, workers and entrepreneurs. We have today Madison Hernandez, who is a cannabis researcher. We have Marie Montmarquet, who is the co-founder of MD Numbers Incorporated, which is a vertically integrated cannabis operation. We have Traz CO, who is
I'm a compliant assistant for Mammoth Distribution right now. Yeah.
Sorry about that. And then we have Brad Lim-Senesac, who is the CMO of WARPSPD, a technology company. And then moderating the panel, we have Rob, who is working on his PhD at the UCLA Labor Center and the postdoc, and also will be, helps out with the Social Impact Center. And yeah, with that, I think we'll let all the panelists, I think, introduce themselves, unless Rob, you would like to say something before we begin with the introductions.
No, I really want to thank everybody. We're super excited. Social Impact Center, just to give a brief introduction, comes out of the cannabis space, but also out of the social justice space. Hey, check it out. And was founded by Felicia Carbajal, amazing queer activist. Really is a connecting space. So it's a space around education, connecting around learning, connecting around building together. And so this is what we do best. We get connected. And I really, really want to thank the UCLA and UC Santa Barbara Canada Clubs, because they put in so much for both these events. They really took a lot of feedback from the community. They just are really trying to create this joint space, and it means a lot. So thank you all, Hannah, Julia, for all your hard work, and the whole crew.
Thank you as well, Rob.
Oh my God.
Holding like that.
Why? It just got stuck?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I think. Let's see.
So maybe to start us off, we have our panelists tell us just their name, pronouns. Mine are he, him. Favorite way to consume, always flower all the time. And share a little bit about where you work right now. Just real quick, 1 minute intros, so that then we can jump into the meat of this discussion.
Can I start? Okay, my name is Madison Hernandez. My pronouns are she, they. Favorite way to consume, I love the variety of it all. I love the potential of cannabis to be like any product, you know, flower, of course. Yes, like I was mentioned, cannabis researcher, also community representative. That's my intro. Oh, also a youth fellow of the Social Impact Center. Yeah.
Awesome. I can go next. Marie Montmarquet, pronouns, she, they, identifies queer. I work with my brother. We co-founded MD Numbers, which is vertically integrated. We have a farm in Salinas and a delivery service and a distribution hub. And I do a lot of advocacy work in this space. And my favorite way to consume, 99% of the time, flower.
I can go next. So my name is Traz. My pronouns are he, she, they, whatever I feel like that day. And let's see, my favorite way, I identify as queer, very, very proud to be queer. And let's see, 99.9% also, if not 100%, is also flower for me, just because I used to dab a lot, but then I think it was just like fucking, it was screwing up my tolerance, and I just, you know, flower is consistent. I love it. It's the best thing in the world. Yeah.
I think I'm last. So I am Brad Lim-Senesac, pronouns he, him. And as some of the panelists know, I also go by Daddy and Glampa. So I am a father and grandpa. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for WARPSPD. We are a marketing technology company in the cannabis space. And that is it for me.
Awesome.
Oh, favorite way to consume. I'm sorry. My fault. I set that up too. My favorite way to consume is I don't choose. I accept all forms of cannabis.
Okay.
No discriminating.
Thank you, Brad. So as you all probably got a sense, we have an amazing range of experience and talent in this industry, not just consumption styles. So we are gonna have a little conversation where the panelists are going to share where they're coming from, where they've been at, and where they see the industry going. And then we're going to open it up to everybody. But feel free in the meanwhile to drop any thoughts, questions. We'll stack them up in the chat, engage as you need. We're here. So I would just want to start off though. We talked a little bit last week about moments where people came out of the green closets, about people's turning points, about all the things that have shaped queer involvement in this industry, from HIV/AIDS crisis to contemporary trauma to just social life. So I'm hoping a couple of our panelists might start us off by sharing one person, event, or opportunity that brought you into the industry. Maybe Madison, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. So the one person that brought me into the industry was a girlfriend of my cousin. I'm originally from Echo Park, born and raised, and my family has been living here for pretty much the majority of my life. While I was living in Bakersfield for a while though, I had a really hard time transitioning into LA because I couldn't find a job right away. So I was like, what do I do? And my cousin reached out to me saying that there was this shop in the neighborhood that was that had positions, and his girlfriend was a manager. So I was like, oh yeah, let me take the Amtrak over there for the morning and have an interview and then come back to work. And then the next week they told me that I got the job, and I was able to talk to my dad about how legitimate the industry is, because not only are there stocks for cannabis, there's also unions for cannabis workers. So that was definitely how I got into it through NIDA. And then everyone else that was working there at the time was a beautiful femme, woman, person that just solidified how I wanted to continue my experience in cannabis, in the cannabis worker world. But shout out to NIDA. She is a biology major at Humboldt University, I believe. We wish the best for her because she's an amazing, amazing person. She's definitely the person who got me into it, and we're forever grateful.
What about you, Brad? Thanks, Madison, by the way.
So, sorry about that. Yeah, so for me, guys, I've been in the cannabis space for 13 years now. Prior to that, 20 years, LGBTQ didn't come out until I was 33. So I do want to congratulate everybody here for owning what they have and having a great life and accepting it. It was very difficult 33 years ago. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it's amazing to see this at UCLA, at UCSB, and at USC, not only cannabis, but also the LGBTQ+. So thank you so much for everybody, including you, Rob. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. But for me, yeah, Berkeley Patients Group, guys, I was in regular marketing. I worked with Home Depot, Saab, some pretty big corporate names. And I ran my own agency, and Berkeley Patients Group CEO, Debbie Goldsberry, longtime advocate, activist, has been in the space for such a long, long time. And I was brought on as their chief marketing officer in 2008, and went through the trials and tribulations of working in the medical cannabis side, as well as helping with legalization, working for Drug Policy Alliance, Marijuana Policy Project, Americans for Safe Access, and probably just about every brand that's in the market right now. But again, thank you everybody for being here and doing this. You guys are amazing, and it's so amazing to see all this. And I actually shared it with I have two daughters that are 26 and 28, and shared it with them today. And they're just like, oh, Dad, that's so cool. So thank you for everyone, for everything you're doing.
Awesome. And it looks like we're going to have a chance to hear from everyone on this question. Maybe Marie, if you want to share too, what brought you to cannabis?
Yeah, it's like a great question. I think the people that were involved in cannabis were the main reason I thought so differently about the drug. Of course, was, well, in school they taught me DARE, and they taught me that all drugs were the same, no matter which type of drug. And as a youngster, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I thought all drugs were terrible. So by the time I was in college, I started just dabbling, smoking, selling cannabis around like 19. And I realized like the law doesn't match the stigma, the law doesn't match the science, the law has nothing to do with how, you know, the perception of this drug is, and it's all very racial and to keep people in jail. And I was like, well, I need to hang out with people that have this actual mindset that, you know, we should be dictating how we live our life, and we shouldn't be accepting what others want us to live our life by. So I ended up just falling in love with the plant. I guess you could say that was the biggest impact. And I had support from my mom, and, you know, she wasn't like, you're just doing the worst thing ever. So I ended up moving to California in 2010 and figuring out a way to get involved with herbal, what was the name of the company? Organic Herbal Supplements was the first company that gave me my tangible compliant experience in 2015. Before that, I was just brokering and learning on the legacy market, of course. And they gave me an opportunity to come in and learn what all the medical aspects were and prep for opening my first delivery service. So yeah, a lot of different pieces came into play, but from where I sat at the time, still can't believe that this is what I do, coming from where I was sitting in Tennessee. And being able to stay out of trouble. I don't know how to.
I love it. So many journeys intersected into this moment. Traz, what about you?
I got into cannabis very, very early on. I came to America in 2010, and I started smoking, I think, 2016, around the time I was graduating from college. And, you know, I met some people that were very, you know, the typical kind of stoner image, white dudes. And, you know, they were teaching me how to smoke. I was just like, it was an odd experience. I feel like definitely the person that has brought me into the right side of cannabis, like, you know, industry, like getting into the industry is different. Like, I had to be pushed to get into it, but like getting into the community, it was so easy because, like, you know, everyone that I've been meeting is just so like lovely. And like, you know, big thanks really to Felicia Carbajal, definitely the founder of Social Impact Center. So I was a volunteer coordinator for the Social Impact Center for a while. So I was getting in contact. I think that's how I met Julia and Anika, I think. Yeah, like I think I met you guys at one of the events and stuff when I was a coordinator, and that was really like helpful because it made me see what the cannabis industry has potential for. Like I feel like if I hadn't met Felicia, it would have taken me into different, you know, I'd be a salesperson now and like loving cannabis in a different manner where it's like, you know, like it's polluted and it's not so like, it's not what I should be. Like I'm really, she's definitely what I owe a lot of my experiences from. Like it's tip top. Like if you guys ever meet Felicia, she's like the most loving person, the most like straight up person. Like it's just, you know, like she's definitely that person for me.
So awesome. And I think, you know, if you picked up on it, people make all the difference in this industry. Who you're connected to, who you learn with, the opportunities you get to learn alongside people really makes a huge difference. And this is an amazing crew right here. So you could learn alongside any of these people, which kind of brings us to our next question about the kind of day-to-day in cannabis. You know, y'all are at the front lines in many ways. What's your favorite part of your work? Take us a little bit through that day-to-day. And maybe Marie, you can start us off because we got I think a lot of us who are connected get a lot of questions about entrepreneurship and what that's like.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is one of my favorite questions because I was joking earlier. I'm like, it just depends on what bomb hits, what day, where I'm at, what I'm doing, right? But so my day-to-day is to oversee a distribution facility that I have a couple brands actively packaging and testing product and putting it out to the market, as well as a delivery service that's ongoing and a relaunch that I'm working on right now. So metric operations, delivery operations, distribution operations, wherever I'm being pulled for that day. Definitely do a lot of advocacy. That's how I met Felicia and dedicate a lot of my time to that. I think this week is a really good glimpse of my life. Yesterday, I went to Sacramento. We were standing out on the Capitol steps fighting for a statewide equity program and enough of the city by city pick and choose type of facilitation of the program that we have right now. Today I went to the farm. I took success centers with me. Felicia and Angela White are like my two mentors that have brought me so heavy into social justice and advocating for that. And we use our farm as a live workshop. So we took a group down that are all verified equity applicants in San Francisco, showed them the full tour through the nursery all the way through post-production. Tomorrow I'm going to Santa Cruz to go and tour a storefront that we might want to work with in the future. And then Thursday and Friday, I'm back on distro delivery operations and trying to gear up a bunch of stuff. So that's like my week in a nutshell. I never really know where I can have the most impact, but I try to make sure I can use my time as wisely as possible to affect real change in a lot of the lives that I come across.
I love it, the whirlwind. Traz, what's it like? Front lines.
Man, well, I also work at a distribution site, and we do a lot of heavy hitters products, edibles, tinctures, different brands, women owned. A lot of them are very, I'm really excited to see what like I can learn from them, because I've only been at this job for a month. So I used to be in the cannabis industry last year as a lead field sampler for CannaSafe, which was a cannabis laboratory. So they test all the products that go out in the market. Now I work at a distribution site, and it's such a different vibe. So right now it's all Excel sheets for me. Like right now, like I'm at the level where Excel sheets are like the most exciting thing in my life. Like if something goes wrong or if something goes really right, like, oh my God, like it's just such a like, whoa. And like now I have to deal with spreadsheets and metric and like an inventory system that's totally new to me, because I've never really done inventory before. So it's just my day to day is like sitting on a chair, kind of like just setting up everything so that the flow of the whole site is like it flows from like day in, all the orders come in, and then we process everything. We make sure that the deliveries are already set to go for the next day, and then the drivers come get it. And then it's just a whole, like it takes such a big ass team. Like it's just, like sometimes I don't think about it as much, but like, like there's seconds of the day where it hits you that like whatever I'm doing that day, it's just like thousands of dollars, like hours of labor that like, other people has done, like, and, like I'm part of this system where it's just like, if shit goes my way, like if shit goes wrong here, like everyone else is going to go away. So it's just, it's definitely a different space. And it's like I'm in a different space. Like it's just I used to work in a field, so it's like now I'm in the office, so it's a different kind of like thrill. Like I'd be on the road and I'd meet all these clients. Now I'm on Excel sheets, but it's still like an exciting kind of thing for me. So but like I do some work with the Social Impact Center too, so that's a lot of writing and making time to organize with Felicia and like coordinating with all y'all lovely people. So like there's always like just little challenges and little things that I can do in the day that keeps me like hella busy. So my day today is pretty solid, I'd say.
Love it. And as a distribution side, Traz, you're basically bringing product in, right? And
yeah, bringing product in, getting them all out. Yeah,
to the shops?
Yes, to shops, to other distribution sites sometimes. We work with some cultivators. We also work with we have an in-house like manufacturing. So it's like manufacturing and then distribution. So it's just Heavy Hitters is a pretty big brand. So like everything that goes through it, it's just like, it's like all the testing, all the tracking of everything. And it's just, it's a lot. Like I've never really seen operations this big. Like I've never really seen that kind of like structure before in like warehouses. I don't think I've ever been to a warehouse until this. And it's just, yeah, so it's really nice. I didn't think that this would be the warehouse kind of life, but it's nice. It's like the office, but the warehouse.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's really interesting. And I think there's so much behind the scenes that people just don't see. Metric, several folks have mentioned that, is the track and trace system that the state developed in order so that every single item from the time it starts as a seed to the point that you get to consume it is being tracked through computer systems at the state. So nothing supposedly disappears into the legacy market. But it's
hardcore.
It's a lot for everybody along the way. So.
It gets easier though. Definitely my advice to people is learn as much as you can on Metric, because you are a valuable member of the crew if you learn the most basic stuff on Metric. It's really easy. I think people get a lot of like overwhelming feeling from it because it looks like an old system, but it's so like intricate. Like there's just so many nauseating features on it that it's just like, wow, like, all right, great. But you know, it does what it does for a reason, and it's to track and trace everything on the market.
So we've been talking about spreadsheets, we've been talking about being out in the field and the farms, and this is a panel about queerness and being queer in cannabis. So I want to know how it shows up in your daily life, in terms of the possibilities, the connections, but also the challenges in your work sites and being in the cannabis industry. And maybe Madison, if you're cool, you want to jump in on that?
Yes. So I want to shout out my sister Janet because I got to watch while she was in one of her Zoom classes. She goes to CSU Long Beach. Woo-hoo. And I was literally blown away by this one thing. And she has this class all the time. I'm just like, how's your brain not mushed always? This is beautiful. But in this conversation that they were having, the professor was saying how, like, because all of our language is heavily shaped by the patriarchy, women and femme people and queer people kind of have to create a whole different language to communicate how they feel. And I felt that a lot while I was working at CCA. I felt like it was really good, like, advantage to kind of have so many intersections of language in my own head, whether that be like English, Spanish, like meme culture, like to be able to have all these languages in my head was really cool for interacting for such a plethora and like broad ranging type of customer. Like I feel like I could talk to everybody, but there was like a challenge in being like a queer, like bisexual woman. I felt like there was that pressure from management to kind of overtly sexualize myself, but at the same time be like extremely like emotionally labor intensive, especially to the women that came in. So I feel like there's like the possibilities of like connecting with lots of different people if you're like a queer person in cannabis, because cannabis already brings so many different people together. And if you add queer to that, it just makes it makes the connections you have even more niche, I feel. And like a tighter knit community, that's the possibility of it. That's what I see in like the queerness of cannabis.
Yeah, do you have the broom still?
Oh, I put it. And the challenges, it would be, I would say that the challenge for me was like not, I would say it would be like having my queerness be repressed, just because I'm a baby gay, so this is new for me. And while I was working at CCA during the pandemic and having like working during the pandemic be like a pressure cooker for like life, I thought like, oh wow, like I think there's like more to this. And so I'm kind of grateful for working at the shop too during a pandemic to make me realize, oh, there's like, I want more out of life. And I'm so grateful to be here. I just want to say that, like, I'm super happy to be able to kind of share a little bit of my experience with like other learners of life and other cannabis enthusiasts. But yeah, that's my say on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madison, for sharing and bringing us into that. You really are amazing, as they're saying in the chat. Traz, what about you? How does being queer in cannabis come into this world of spreadsheets or the world that you were doing as a tester? How did it?
Let's see. Well, it's different for me because I'm masculine presenting. And like I was a field sampler and I knew like what privilege I carried because I was able to be me. But it's like that privilege came with a price because I worked like a woman. Like they treated me like, but it still put me in it's a disadvantage and an advantage at the same time. And it's kind of sucks to think of it that way because it's just like it shouldn't be that way. Like I shouldn't feel like I have any kind of like I don't know, discrimination. Cause I mean, I worked with 18 dudes. Yo, I was the one person, I was the one woman, I was the one queer person in an 18 team, 18 dude team. So it was a different experience. So like I've gotten that question before where it's just like, do you feel like you're privileged because you look like that? And I do. So like I feel like I should point that out to people that I guess femme presenting queer people like they have it kind of the worst because most of the time they have to hide it just to get that advantage again, because like the minute that they present themselves as anything other than binary, like it's a different feel to you. Like after you have a conversation about the they and them with any kind of straight folk, sometimes there's some people that just rub off like in a wrong way, and they just kind of look at you differently because it's just like I feel like they think that I'm judging them for judging me, and I'm just like it's a circle of life. We're both judging each other. We should stop that. Like I feel like that's the future that we're going to. Like this is the future that we're looking at, is that people in this space, Black, brown, queer, like female, male, non-binary people, like can come together and work in the industry. Like I love seeing gay people in the industry. Like when I'm at work and I spot that fresh gay hire, like I was just like, hey, like, because we all work together differently, and it's just like when you feel like you have that brother, you have that sister, you have that in betweener, like it's just it's nice. It's a camaraderie. I finally because you can never really have like those, because like in the cannabis industry, everyone knows here, like it's very male dominant. Like it's just like you'll have meetings with all dudes, and it's just like it's so refreshing to just like see a face that kind of looks like yours, and it's just it's nice to see that. And I feel like that is a possibility. We just have to work hard right now because not enough of us are here, and it's just not enough of us are like being listened to. It's just it's tough. Definitely, that's the challenge, is that I'm impatient because I'm a millennial, I guess, and it's just like like I just want to get things moving already, like right now. Like it's 2021, god damn it, like we don't understand feminism yet. Like it's just those kinds of things. Like, why do I have to be asked, why is this sexist? Why don't you know that this is sexist? Like things like that. It's very challenging. But I'm looking forward to like everyone here growing and growing. Like it's a good industry to be in. There's so many possibilities. Innovation is coming. Tech, like it's the sciences, art, there's events, there's so many things in the cannabis space that you guys can get into. It's just like we need more of you, and like tell your friends. So
Thank you so much, Traz. Thanks for being there at the trenches and fighting for that. And it's okay to get a little impatient, but and I think, Brad, you can speak a little bit to the long-term changes that have happened and been right there at the front. So maybe want to think about a little bit about, give you a chance, Brad, to reflect a little bit on what you heard and how things have changed, but also about where you see things going. What's left to be done, and as queer folks, as can activists, where do we go next?
I think, one of the things to remember, and I do want to say something here with regards to if we took a picture right now, right, of only the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beautiful faces on this screen right now, you have 2 males. So change is happening, change is not coming, it's here, and you're doing it. The LGBTQ plus cannabis is doing it right here, and you're doing it, and you're not doing it at some cafe, you're not doing it, you're doing it at UCLA, you're doing it at UCSB, you're doing it at USC, and you're making that change. Now, I know I'm white. I know that I'm 53. I have 2 children. I have an ex-wife, an ex-fiance, lots of ex-boyfriends, a husband. But there's change, right? You look at that, there's a lot of change there just in my own life. How does cannabis affect that? How does being queer and gay and out affect that? It only affects it if you let it. Right? So make the change, be proud, put it out there. Guys, everyone that ever has met me knows that I am gay. I don't look gay, don't sound gay. I'm 6'1", 200 pounds. Not that, not that feminine type gay person. I'm also the guy who plays golf, right? I choose to do and be who I want to be, and it's my choice, right? It's my choice to be in cannabis as well. And I always use that as a parallel, right? I came out to be openly gay, and I've come out to be openly cannabis. And if you don't like that, that's okay, but move on. And I'll go my direction and you can go yours. I said that same conversation with my mother, right? But now my mother uses cannabis at the age of 88 because now her pain got so bad that she'll do anything to make it better. And so it may have taken 86 years to get her to that point. But she has 2 gay sons, and so the joke was, it wasn't that we were both gay, is that we were both drug dealers. We both sold cannabis, and so, but I do see, number one, I see cannabis making major changes. If you look, every day on LinkedIn or in the news or anywhere, Alabama is now legalizing cannabis. It's crazy every day to see some of these states that I've actually lived in or been a part of that now have cannabis as a part of what they have. I have been a part of it for so long in California that when you go to another state that doesn't have legalization, you're smoking away and you brought a joint or you've got a vape pen or something. You don't even think about it when you get out of the state of California. And so, we are very lucky. We are very, I'm very appreciative to what we have, but I also know that now I have to inform, train, and educate everybody else. And that's my role. Whether it be cannabis or whether it be queer, I've got to inform, train, and educate people on the daily. My husband and I live in West Hollywood, California, and my office is in San Francisco. So I go up during the week, and I'm in the East Bay. Our office is in Pleasanton. And how do I see change? I work for one of the newest, biggest technology companies in cannabis. We have a C-suite of over 350 years of experience in retail, marketing, and cannabis combined. And so that's major change, guys, because when I started, edibles were put into a plastic baggie with the zip tie around it. And now you see the brands, and you see manufacturing, and you see production, and you see how there's been major change in 13 years, and there's going to be major change in 13 months. There's going to be major change happening in 13 days and 13 hours. As long as the face of cannabis and LGBT is this, what we see right here, it's going to be fine. I'll be honest, just so everybody knows, we always used to try and recruit females, Black females, Asian females, Latina female. We tried to recruit everybody at Berkeley Patients Group, and that's probably one of the biggest melting pots I've ever been a part of. I was not the only queer person, and there were plenty of queer people out, because that's how Berkeley Patients Group was founded. The queer community in San Francisco started this movement to legalize cannabis for people with HIV and AIDS. We've stuck to that. My family has been a part of that for over 30 plus years. We own a pharmacy chain, my brother and his husband. So we've been a part of the HIV and AIDS community for a very long time. We know that cannabis has helped the community. We know that it's been a major part of it. And 2 years ago, prior to COVID, I saw a lot of cannabis companies get involved in the queer community. I saw them start marketing and packaging and doing anything that they could, because number one, we're a good demographic to have because we buy cannabis. We're not afraid to use it because we're out and proud, and we're out and proud about everything we do. And so that's okay. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, I'm going to go back to change is happening right here. If I were to take a snapshot, it's happening right here. It's going to happen every day. You all are making that change, and you're doing it at a very high level at a major university in this world. And so I applaud all of you and thank you all for your time and listening to me rant a little bit, but I'm trying to riff here a little bit, Rob. but no, it's been a great to be a part of Canna Club. You know, this is why we've been a part of it. We actually sought Canna Club out because this is what I wanted to do, is I wanted to help change, support, and help direct and lead people as I was. I was very privileged in the first 10 days of being in the cannabis industry in 2008. I had met and worked with Ed Rosenthal, Dr. David Bierman, Amanda Ryman, Dr. Amanda Ryman, excuse me, Debbie Goldsberry. You know, I could go on and on. Within the first 10 days of my career in cannabis was at the most elite level, because they knew that there was an opportunity to bring somebody from the outside that looked like me to represent cannabis. And they knew at that point in time it was important. But now the face of cannabis is right here, and it's changing, and that's great. So I think I'm done, Rob.
No, that's just fabulous. And thank you for tying it all together in terms of perspective and where we could be going. But Marie, you're on the steps of Sacramento yesterday. You're ready for us. Tell us, what do you envision? What are we looking for change?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Brad, right? We see change on the daily basis. We're looking at change right here, right now. I definitely have to agree with just making sure that the visibility on the plant and the medicinal uses, which was historically done by the LGBT plus community, and those intersections are so crucial, and just understanding the benefit of the plant and what the plant has done in the lives that it's changed in the past, and why we're really here. You know, we're not necessarily here to walk into a storefront and ask for the highest THC cannabis. We're here because this is really medicinal above all. The changes I would love to see out there, they're a good amount, but they're all very social justice focused. I mean, we don't have to look very hard to see who's participating the most in the cannabis industry, which is the 1%. Very rich groups of individuals, mostly male, mostly white, as we know. And there's 40,000 plus people in jail right now for smoking cannabis. And most of them have nonviolent cannabis crimes. Some of them have lifetime convictions. I'm working with a group right now that just got clemency for Trump for a lifetime conviction for a nonviolent cannabis crime. So I think that we've done a lot of work, but of course we have a lot to do. And being here with such an established group of people in university, and just everything that we are doing right now, bringing visibility to those type of initiatives. For me, it's definitely like creating a national equity program is like on my top list of things that need to happen, where right now each jurisdiction, each local city is able to create or not create any sort of program that they see fit. Some see, you know, giving justice to those who have been impacted by the war on drugs as something they should do. Others do not care to do so, have no, you know, actual perspective for how they police their communities, and those that have been most impacted by the unfair policing of those communities, when we know minorities and others use cannabis at the same exact rate, but in a lot of communities they go to jail 9x 10 times more. So my thing is to just slow down the industry in some perspectives, where we don't give it away too soon. You know, the 1% doesn't get to run away with all the money before we actually have a funded initiative for equity. Keyword funded. Initiatives are great, but if they're not funded, then we typically don't go anywhere. And we're spinning our wheels in a lot of places right now to get direct funding that has been allocated from the state and from Gavin Newsom to the hands of the actual people that are paying rent, and dealing with their operations and wanting to build brands and seeing all the challenges that they're dealing with to get into the industry, right? So a national equity program, a funded national equity program, getting the 40,000 that are in jail for smoking some pot and selling some pot, obviously out of jail. One other thing I kind of call just like a value proposition of the legacy market. You know, right now, there's a lot of people that are in the legacy market that aren't necessarily valued or appreciated to actually transition into the legacy market. We don't really have that same, one day, one of my friends and I were talking, it's like how hackers are valued, you know, large institutions that need, you know, cybersecurity and a lot of like very specific niche things. They really value hackers, even though they were doing something illegal at one point in time. I think we've seen a lot of failures of these big companies that have come in and thought they knew how to sell weed, thought anything in a jar or anything in a vape pen would sell. And we've seen them fail time and time again. So we need to create a lot of more value propositions for these individuals, for bringing them into the market, for transitioning them, not only that, but actually valuing them. Because right now I see that, you know, maybe you have somebody that comes in from Zipcar, but you've got somebody with 10 years of cannabis experience and they value the guy that came in from Zipcar. So just making sure that you understand the market, and we are giving value to people who understand the market culturally and every perspective of the market. And that's who people are spending their money with, not necessarily some large conglomerate that came in and acquired the most amount of canopy space and the most permits and are selling, you know, the equivalent of Bud Light cannabis to everyone and their mom, which is, you know, what we've seen a lot of. So just, it's medical, once again, making sure that we keep that medical grade and those same expectations, but putting that all the way through the process for all the things that we know, you know, we're at the forefront. We have like the youth sitting here. We have very large universities all on this call that can make sure that they impact change in their local area. And especially when it comes to, you know, equity programs and making sure that we don't let this industry get too far ahead of these programs before they're created and we fund them.
Oof, right there. Thank you, Marie. There are a lot of snapping going on, but unfortunately we're all muted, but we're all feeling it. And I think it's absolutely totally on point with what we're talking about. So I want to open it up though. What questions did this raise? What questions do you have for our panelists? Hopefully we can get a couple questions lined up and then get folks in conversation.
I have a question for
Yes.
Brad. Could you talk a little bit more about the advertising part of your job or your experience within the cannabis industry?
I didn't hear the first part. I apologize.
Could you talk more about your experience in marketing within the cannabis industry?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. So that's actually been my career for over 25 years. And it has changed. You know, when I first came in 2008, I moved here from Atlanta, Georgia. I moved from an agency that I was a partner in, working with very corporate brands and very corporate marketing. And Berkeley Patients Group, I'm not sure if you've had the privilege of being in the current store, was not the store that I worked in, but it was a much larger store down the street on San Pablo Avenue. It was called the Pot Club on San Pablo Avenue. Not really, but that's what everybody referred to it as. And so as a marketing and branding and PR person coming in from corporate America and Atlanta, Georgia, the challenge to turn it from the Pot Club on San Pablo Avenue to Berkeley Patients Group, which is renowned internationally as a place for science, research, study, and medical cannabis. And kind of leaders, you know, I mean, they've been open for almost 20 October will be 22 years. So they're right up there in terms of longest running cannabis dispensary. The biggest thing I had to do in marketing was to go meet the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, go meet the chief of police at the Berkeley Police Department, go meet the police chief at Cal Police Department. And what it was is I couldn't do anything marketing wise to do anything. I had to go in and I had to inform, train, and educate people. I say those words a lot, but it is important that you do that when you are giving people lessons on how to be sensitive to LGBT issues, how to be sensitive to medical cannabis issues, how to be sensitive to recreational issues. But the marketing, the higher level marketing actually helped the cannabis space. We stopped using the word marijuana. Marijuana is the most derogatory word that you could use in the cannabis space. We got Oaksterdam behind the campaign. We got Americans for Safe Access behind the campaign. And we really started focusing on using the botanical name that it is named for, so that we could really kind of change people's minds. It's like, folks, it's in the dictionary. This is what it's called. This is how it's utilized. It is a plant. It is helpful to the community. It is helpful to people who are sick. It is helpful to people who need it. Now, was I delusional that 75% of the people that came through the door were recreational consumers of cannabis? No. But the most important thing was that 25% of the people that were medical got this attention that they needed, got the help that they needed. At that point in time, BPG was providing 200 patients a month free cannabis. So our Helping Hands program was very integral in terms of what we did in the community there. But it was all about marketing. It was about changing people's minds, perceptions, and training and educating them and informing them how things can be better. And it went from transient, bicycle, skateboard, work trucks to mothers, fathers, nurses, lawyers, people coming in supporting the industry, but also saying, "Hey, wow, this is amazing product. This is helping this. This is helping that." Can't tell you how many times I've cried in my office of people coming in and telling me stories about how cannabis has changed their life. The biggest one that sticks out of my mind after 13 years is an 87-year-old woman who came in and whose husband had passed away one day earlier. And she thought it was so, she thought it was so important to come to Berkeley Patients Group and thank everyone for the quality of life that her husband had for the last 8 months of his life, as opposed to on all these pills, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't eat. That's not, I didn't have to market anything there. That was, she learned that was the thing that was the most important thing to her in her life, was that he have quality of life. And I think that's, if we market anything, if we promote anything, if we care about anything in the space, it's be who you are, and then appreciate the things that you can have in your body to be who you are. And that's whether that you want to be a man, whether you want to be a woman, whether you want to be transgender, whether you want to be non-binary, whatever you want to be, and be in cannabis, that's okay and that's all right. And I think that the biggest part of the marketing part of what we've done is just educate. It's just been a ton of education. That's why, and Hannah knows this, Julia knows this, and I think I saw Carolina earlier on, she knows this. That's why WARPSPD is a part of this. I do want to preface something real quick. I'm actually the only white male in the company. We have Korean, Filipino, Japanese, female, but I am the white male who's gay. So we have our whole little rainbow there, but it is probably the most diverse company I've ever worked for in my life. And I'm proud of that. So we support that. They support the community. We support this. We support all the groups and organizations in Canna Club, no matter what university, even though I am wearing UCLA light blue today. Sorry, Julia. But yeah, I mean, it really is just about the educational side of that. And because you learn that sometimes the current things that you do to market and promote in the regular space doesn't always work in the cannabis space, because there are so many rules, restrictions, and liabilities that you have, as you guys know, Traz and Marie, with regards to packaging and labeling, and the quality of the product. Whether legalization happens or not, cannabis is still going to be ID'd product. It's still going to be along the lines of buying a beer or anything like that. We just hope that we get to that point where you don't have to track where the beer came from. So lots of challenges, but yeah, education, Salmi, is the biggest thing I think that we've ever done to market and promote anything. And I think that you'll always win if you educate people.
Thank you, Brad. So other questions from our audience? So on your mind? What are you thinking about the industry? Maybe actually, as we're waiting for folks to think of questions, I think one aspect of like the supply chain, and I think it goes back to what Marie said, one place where value is really created in cannabis is the interpersonal interactions on the shop floor. And as I think somebody mentioned too, who's seen Madison in action, I wonder, Madison, if you could share a little bit about what it was like on the shop floor for you, how you learned kind of the ins and outs of cannabis care.
Yeah. I feel like Brad mentioned an interesting statistic, like 75% of people come into a shop recreationally, 25% come in medically, and it did always it pushed me further into knowing more about cannabis when medical patients would come in, when people would say I have cancer. I'm just I was just trying to convince someone how to buy a $40 gram for them to dab something with. That's totally recreational. And I'm just all right, let me shift into this. It was really easy to shift into the consciousness of care, care of consciousness. It was easy to kind of bring that out because I knew that that's what kind of everyone was coming in for ultimately. It's a medicine, whether or not you're using recreationally, and I feel I got educated as a bud tender. We would have bud tender education trainings. Earlier on the call, there was Genevieve here. She was kind of the purchasing manager for CCA for a while. And so she would be the person to organize how, or when, and yeah, she would organize when we would get trainings from the brand ambassadors or the company's education program themselves. I learned a lot that way, but I also learned through figuring out through people's questions, why would CBD work? Why does this specific ratio of CBD THC work? What consumption method is going to be best if not ingesting? Could it be topical? You learn a lot. Yeah, like you said, on the floor, in action. And also after you learn kind of the basics, endocannabinoid system and terpenes and how THC and CBD do interact with each other, how they interact with the brain, then it's really easy to kind of plug in the information with the questions that people bring. Cause ultimately, yeah, it goes back into the same kind of answers. Yeah.
Madison, I learned a lot from you, so I appreciate you keep sharing. And since we have 2 minutes left, does any of our audience have questions, or Hannah and Julia? If not, I'd love to end it off by giving every panelist a chance to give one line of advice to folks on this call who are interested in the industry, who might be dabbing their feet in the process. What's one piece of advice, especially coming queer person to queer person, for folks, if you want to jump in, or one thing to keep in mind?
Well, one thing, I'll be quick. Oh, sorry, Madison. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if you're a queer person of color person going into cannabis, just try to find the other person of color. Try to find the other queer person. I think that's what I did. I was hey, I'm Mexican. Are you Mexican? They're yeah. I was oh my God, amazing. They're I'm Honduran. I'm just oh my God, amazing. I'm Guatemalan. Oh my God, amazing. Ask about, I would say ask the people around you, who they are, because then you get connected into those facets of their life. And I would have never had the connection of getting into the shop that I did if I didn't ask questions to my cousin's girlfriend. If I'd never asked her in passing, what do you do? She would never have asked me, hey, do you want to work there too, since you're interested in cannabis? So ask questions, get to know the people around you, even if you don't like them. It's totally worth it.
Go for Brad. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, guys, this is just a piece of advice for everyone here that is currently enrolled at a university. Get your university to get cannabis classes. Get a cannabis curriculum. We need cannabis lawyers. We need cannabis marketers. We need cannabis bankers. We need cannabis hackers. We need everything in the cannabis space. I've been very privileged to consult for Green Flower Media, who has also supported this this group. I've also been supportive of Oaksterdam. But talk to your school, get the curriculum started, because if you want to be in cannabis, like I use this example of, if you walk into a Gap store and you ask anybody working on the floor folding clothes what's their degree in, and it's in retail management. And where is the cannabis retail management class? Where is the cannabis marketing class? Where are these classes? They don't exist. You've got to go outside your preview and find those. Now, some universities do have them. I have been an outside speaker at UC Berkeley. I was there for 4 years. I spoke for the LGBT class in social services and the cannabis class. And Dr. Amanda Ryman, she taught both of those classes, and we are, as you can probably guess, we're best friends. And she, but she brought in that outside person to come in and explain to folks how you can do these things and how they can be important, and how they affect the socioeconomic community and the social work that you need to be doing. And so get the universities to change, embrace it, and get those classes in your universities, and we'll support it.
Yes, thank you. I'm all about that. And then tell them they have to hire people who actually studied cannabis.
Exactly. Exactly.
But, Marie and Traz, why don't you close us out?
I'll go real quick. I'll let you finish, Traz. I just wanted to say, I think that all of these things are so intersectional, right? And one thing that's very common is just stigmas. Like in the industry every day, as you know, queer, LGBTQ plus people, every day we deal with all these false stigmas and being put in different boxes. And kind of like we stated earlier, I forget who said it, but you know, legalize weed like beer is legalized. Legalize weed as if it's never killed anyone, because it hasn't. You know, no, you're not going over to your neighbor's house. I saw this meme the other day. It says not counting how many ounces of beer are in his fridge, and or where they came from, and or you know, judging people when they have a glass of wine with their kids sitting there, right? So I feel like I interact with so many different types of people, and we come back to a lot of stigmas that even though we're so pro weed and we're so all of these things, the lack of research on some angles allows people to get gas split a little bit, for lack of a better term. But we're not crazy for saying, you know, cannabis is not harmful. We're not crazy to treat it as less harmful than something that kills thousands and thousands of people every day, right? Like alcohol. So just be mindful of the stigmas that are, you know, we create and that we live in, and try to continue to break them in these aspects.
Awesome. Thank you, Marie. Thanks for breaking it down every day. Traz, what was that?
I'd say everything, and keep learning and unlearning what you've been taught, because there's, like, I agree with you, there's stigmas, even our own selves, like we have biases, we just have like so much internal shit within ourselves. Like keep on looking to yourselves and keep learning on your like you know, like just to improve, just grow with the plant. Like it's just, you know, like be a better person. I feel like we need you in the industry and to represent us, but like, you know, bring something in, like keep learning on by yourself, and just like just improve yourself. And yeah, I hope I'll see you guys here in the community again. This is lovely. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we all. So I'll hand it back. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists, from, you know, on behalf of myself, Social Impact Center, all of our crew. This would be really, I've learned so much. I really loved engagement and all the time that you all gave leading up to this. And to Hannah and to Julia, to the whole crew, Carolina, the people who just put in so much time to get this done. You don't see that invisible labor, but it makes something like this go smoothly and brings you all out. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much, Marie, Traz, Brad, and Madison. And it was so amazing to hear from you guys. And Rob, thank you for leading and doing the presentation last week. And of course, yeah, Julia, Felicia, Danny, all the folks at Social Impact Center that helped make it happen. And also thank you to the sponsors, Locate, WARPSPD, and PayQuick helped fund some of the activities and financial stuff tied to these events. And yeah, I guess we'll stick around. I'll stick around for another couple minutes if anyone has last minute questions or thoughts. But otherwise, I hope everyone has a great night, and I appreciate everyone coming out and all the time that everyone put into this to make it happen.
Thanks so much, Anna. This was a pleasure. Thank you, Rob, Brad.